For 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Date, it's always interesting to have you before the committee. It's interesting discussion this afternoon. Can you tell me what spurs the rulemaking of CFPB, the different areas that they get into?
Thank you, Congressman. Let me answer that in terms of the long-term policy agenda and then the near-term. Not quite in that order. The near-term policy agenda as it applies to rulemaking really is set out by the statute. We have a not inconsiderable rulemaking agenda within the mortgage business is mandatory and carries with it a timetable that is
let me call timeout right there. What's the reason? Do you know, or do you have any idea what the reason is for the rule-making request that has been made of you?
Yes, I mean the statute is relatively clear in most cases.
Now, why is the statute the way it is? Why does the statute want you to make a rule in certain instances?
Well, I know that the deliberations and debate with respect to the statute were lengthy and spirited, and of course Congress in its discretion has chosen a number of different rulemaking mandates, and we have embraced them, and we are moving forward with speed.
In the course of your rulemaking, do you do a cost-benefit analysis of each rule?
We do. It comes in a couple of different flavors. One is a analysis of the costs and the benefits and the burdens associated with the rule. There's also an element that relates with particularity to the impact on relatively small institutions within the financial services landscape.
Okay, with regards to your RESPA and TILA rules, have you done a cost-benefit analysis on those yet?
Yes, and as part of the proposal, I mean, part of the reason why the document is 1,100 pages long is that, you know, the new rules associated with TILA and RESPA integration are like 60 pages of the 1,100 pages. The other, whatever that is, 1,040 pages, relate to lots of other required elements of our rulemaking, including the cost-benefit analysis. So that's laid out in that which we published.
Okay. Part of the mission of going to RESPA, though, was to create a simpler disclosure form and something more consumer-friendly. And yet we wound up with a 3-page long estimate at the beginning and 5-page long estimate at the end. Do you think that's really an improvement? I
do. Both, to my mind, are improvements. We have been careful to reach out to a number of different...
Have you ever done excuse me a second, have you ever done a survey to see how many consumers actually read those documents?
We conducted what's called qualitative usability testing before the proposal was even issued.
Qualitative
usability testing.
Usability
it goes
testing.
by a few different terms. It is something that is used at other agencies as well as not infrequently in the private sector to develop the broad contours of a piece of collateral or a disclosure form so that before you...
I get it. Did you ever do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So
okay. What was your finding on the RESPA forms? Have you done it on RESPA yet?
So you're referring to the general kind of difficulties that consumers have with the current forms. So
no, I'm asking you. Did you do the survey on the RESPA forms to see if anybody reads them?
So we did conduct
What was the result?
So in general, that which we have proposed is something that is easier. It would appear based on the testing today. More
pages. And it's going to be easier to read. Is that right?
It is. So the mandate by the Congress was to combine the TILA and RESPA closing documents, so the final truth in lending disclosure.
Do you know offhand what the percentage is of people who actually read the RESPA documents?
It is a relative. You would be hard pressed, I think, Congressman, to find borrowers who sit at a closing table and thumb through.
Do you have a figure, please?
I don't know the
exact. 2%.
I wouldn't hazard a guess.
Okay.
But we will be doing quantitative testing after the proposal comment period ends.
But we don't know how many. We're going to propose a rule, and we don't know what percentage of people actually read this stuff. So therefore, is there a use for it?
Oh, sure. This is, for most people, the single largest financial transaction that they will enter.
If they don't read it, Mr. Date, what good is it?
Well, Congressman, it is, at some level, I suppose, it would appear useful to know how the dollars in the transaction actually flow.
Very quickly, I got one more quick question for you. In following up Mr. Canseco's discussion here about verifying complaints, it was very concerning to me that you indicated you did not verify all the complaints, did not go through and try and figure out if there was the legitimate complaint and didn't follow up if there was something needed to be followed up on. Why?
Oh, no. This is, I feel like was not adequately clear. To the extent that there are complaints that a consumer disputes the resolution of, then we have an investigations team within our consumer response unit that will follow up with those complaints.
But you indicated to him you just verified whether it was a legitimate complaint that they actually did business with. You didn't tell him that you actually followed up on each individual complaint to see if there was something there.
What I just referred to is our approach with respect to complaints that we receive. With respect to that which we publish on the website, we are quite transparent about it. That which we publish on the website is the non-personally identifiable information associated with complaints that we received with the various data fields as we receive them. It is something that will continue to populate over time. But that is it. For example, we have to.
My basic question was, you get the complaints, you verify that it's a legitimate complaint, the person does business. Do you follow up on an individual complaint? If one individual, you keep telling me about this subset, about a whole group of people that are being abused or there's a problem. But if there's one individual case, you're not following up on it from the discussion and the answers you're giving me. Is that correct?
With a random sample of complaints that are resolved.
If you're giving a random sample, Mr. Date, you are not taking care of every single one of them.
So complaints that are resolved to the satisfaction of a consumer, we will not follow up an investigation of every single one of those complaints. No.
My time is up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Manzullo.